and welcome to my floss tube stitching with Mel. Today is floss tube number 8 and it is Monday the 16th of February 2026. I am a day early, but tomorrow is supposed to be very hot at 36 degrees Celsius with storms in the afternoon and heavy rain. I'm in the office tomorrow, so I thought by the time I get home the storm will have well and truly hit. I have a steel roof, so if the rain's really heavy it would probably drown out the video and my house will be really hot and all you'll hear is the fan. So I thought I may as well film the night before. I've stitched on all my projects that I was going to, so my stitching is done for the week, so there's no difference with regards to what you would see if I filmed now or tomorrow. The sun is starting to go down, so it's about 7:30 p.m. here in Australia. We are in daylight savings, but obviously as summer is coming to a close, our days start to get a bit shorter, but I think we should still have around 45 minutes of sun before it gets quite dark. So hopefully the light stays okay and we can get through this video relatively unscathed. So I had a surprising stitchy week this week. I stitched on all 8 projects and did 3,700 stitches for the week. So a bit down on last week, but still a lot better than I thought. I did have a no stitch day on a Saturday, which is usually one of my biggest stitching days, and I also had appointments during the week that meant I was out for a longer period of time than normal, and that obviously impacted my stitching as well. But Sunday was a very good stitching day for me. It was a very quiet day. I just did errands in the morning and then was able to stitch, and I got 1,400 stitches done for the day, which I think is probably my record or equal record. So that definitely helped. And even being able to put in 600 stitches already today, since I finished work and I've had dinner, yeah, that helped me get to my target of what I needed to work on this week. Just no extra stitches. So just before I get into showing you the whips, a little bit about me. I stitch mostly full coverage, but there are some non-full coverage in here. I stitch all of my projects with the call for DMC on either 20 count Aida or 28 count even weave. If I stitch on the 20 count, it's 2/1 full cross, and if I stitch on the 28, it is 1/1 full cross. All my non-dyed fabric I get from JK's cross stitch supplies here in Australia. And any specialty fabric, I will let you know if I show them where I got it from. But the standard fabric is all from JK's. I did have someone ask, so I thought I would let you all know. So we'll get into the whips. We will start with my focus pieces for the week that don't change. So my first one is Temperature Garden from Zahara Designs Studio. This is stitched on 20 count white lurex Aida, which is the opalescent Aida, so the 20 count, and here's where we're up to. So I put 200 stitches into this. I mentioned last week that I'm much more enjoying stitching in 100 blocks. It does help with the tracking that I do for my Facebook games, and I do just prefer stitching in the round numbers, so I save a few days and then stitch 100, and then a few days later I stitch the other 100. So I think I'm up to Sunday. I think I've got Saturday. I think I've got 2 days outstanding, maybe 3. I've lost track of my days now. But as you can see, we're back into ups and downs with our weather. We can go from quite warm back to cold. But that's typical Melbourne weather for you. For those of you who commented on my last video about hoping the weather was good for me on Saturday to be outside all day, it was only 21 degrees, so it's going to look pretty cold on the temperature piece, but it felt a lot hotter than that sitting in the sun, and even wearing sunscreen and long pants, I still managed to get sunburnt because the Australian sun is very unforgiving. So yeah, it was a lot hotter than I wanted, but temperature wise it looked good on paper. But there was no cloud cover, so we were just in the direct sun all day. So this one is now at 1,286 stitches out of 10,385, and we've hit 12.38%. That one's fun to do and watch, even though the temperatures don't look how they feel. So they look a lot cooler than a lot of the days actually feel. We've started to have a bit more of the humidity. So that's always fun. So the next one I worked on was Santa Gnomes by Soda Stitch on Etsy. So this was a new start on this gnome. So there's no before picture. This one is stitched on 20 count Ada in the colour Night by Aimee Designs. And I put 1,000 stitches into this one, and there is 1,784 stitches to complete him. This is gnome 5 out of 8 for this year. So this gnome, I did not write down the percentage, but I did take note that we only have 6,784 stitches to go until all the gnomes are finished. So we are getting down in the numbers. Normally I stitch all my projects in the Stitchy Mummy's typewriter method, working from top to bottom, which I started doing, and I think I got to around this point and some of the colours had carried down, and I decided to do some colour completing after that. So I got most of the colours completed. I think there's 5 colours left to finish him off. So he'll be finished this week and the next one will be started. So it looks like he's just surrounded with presents this week. And the final focus piece for this week is Dizzy, which is my custom chart by Cross Stitch for Everyone. It is stitched on 20 count gridded Ada. So this came out for both as a focus piece and technically one of the wheel spin positions. So with the poll, he won the vote, and so the aim was for this third week of the wheel spins to do 1,000 stitches on him, which I got done. So there he is. So I did 1,000 stitches on him. I hit a few milestones on him. So I did get a row finish, which is very exciting. I've also hit 20,000 stitches in on him. So also very exciting. So he's at 20,000 out of 57,600 and he's at 34.72%. So I officially passed the third mark as well on this one. So very exciting week. So I'll bring him in to show you a bit more where I stitched. So there was a few gaps to fill out in his face, and then the rest was just this background. So we'll bring that right in. You'll see a few extra park threads. So I did the first 500 with where my Q-snap was, which I think covered about this section. And then when I moved the Q-snap for my next 500, I realized that I might be able to get that row finished. So I parked a lot more, and I did manage to get the row finished. So I think he is looking amazing, and I'm so excited. So when he gets pulled out this week, he will get 500 stitches in over here, which will start that background. It won't hit him, but we'll get the background done. But lots of milestones on him, so that was extra fun. So now we'll get into the actual wheel spins that I had. So there were 5 of them this week because he counted as the 6th. So the first one we spun was Otter in the Water by Cross Stitch for Everyone. This is stitched on 28 count gridded even weave. And I'm still working in the Otter's head. So this got 300 stitches. It is now at 10,300 stitches out of 111,890 for 9.21%. So I think I started back here and was just filling in these colors, but a lot of them carry down or are ninja stitches. So this is extremely confetti heavy. I was hoping, because it didn't look like there was that many, to get a bit further across in the head, but that did not happen at all. The colors did carry down quite a bit. So I don't think you'll see too much progress, but it will be in this section here that you'll see the most progress there. I'll open it up so you can see all of it so far. So yeah, like I said, it's very confetti heavy. It takes a long time to stitch that one, but I know that it's going to look amazing when it's finished, so it will be worth it. It's just hard to get through that area, but it's still fun and the colors are fun, so it's a bonus. And soon we'll get through the Otter's head and back into the water, and that's only a few colors. Still confetti in more of a scattered pattern, but much less than that one, or that part should I say. The next one I spun was Crystal Rose by Sara Schulte. It is charted by the Cross Stitch Studio. It is stitched on 28 count even weave. It also got 300 stitches, and it is currently at 8,600 out of 199,500 for a total of 4.31%. And I just continued filling in this yellow and continuing into these scattered bits over there. But we're getting closer to a row finish, but I think there's still several stitching sessions to go on this one. But it's quite a bit of confetti in this one, but it is more like this sort of setup where they're scattered in an area, and you can get them done, but still a lot of counting. And here's where it's up to as a whole. So it's fun to see the colors transition from these blues on this side into the pinks, the purples, and now the yellows. And then I believe that when we do get to the edge, which will be roughly around here, it'll start to change a little bit into the greens. So that will be fun. Even though it is just one giant crystal rose, it has so many color changes in areas to give it its shape and dimension. It is still fun to work on because you are working in one color and then you select the symbol and all of a sudden it's a completely different color and you think, oh, that's surprising. But anyway, the next one that I spun was Library of Dogs by Aimee Stewart, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. This is also stitched on 28 count even weave. And this one I just started recently, so there's not as much progress on this. I am now at 1,300 stitches after adding the 300 out of 715,284, and I'm at 0.18%. So it seems like absolutely nothing. So I was just continuing selecting symbols across here. I started in this book and brought the symbols out, but as you can see, a lot are scattered down here. I did fill in some of these books. Whilst this looks like one orange, I think it's about 4 different shades of orange, and there's even more in this book. And even this part of the tree background is a lot of different colors as well. So it is heavy confetti, but it is the supersized max colors, so that is to be expected. I'm also in tree, so another reason that it's going to be confetti, but it doesn't look like heaps of progress because as you can see, a lot of the stitches are spread out down in further rows. So it'll take a long time to do these rows. As I mentioned in an earlier video and did ask for opinions, I've decided to stitch this one in sections so that I can see a little bit more, because it is so busy. I'll get to see more this way. So I think the section I'm working on comes to about there in the top row. So a couple more boxes from where I'm stitched to there. And so I'll stitch to about there and then move down to the next row and do that section to get those jogs in that first section, and then review, and I'll either move to the next section across and keep going in sections, or once I've got a couple of dogs, maybe I'll be satisfied and I can go back to completing the whole top row. Who knows, because that's still a very long way away, so I may very well change my mind a lot of times between now and then. Other people who are stitching on this project, if you'd like to see more than what I've got, that I'm sure, and there are plenty of others, but the ones that I've seen recently is Siske at Siske Stitches. She's the one I saw it on and decided to buy the pattern from. And then just after I purchased the pattern, I saw it in Kim Hollenback's Whip Parade, and she's done quite a lot of along the side, so it looks amazing. And I watched this afternoon Busymomstitcher, who is pulling it out in her next week's stitching, so she showed where she was up to in her plans, and she is working in that top corner and has a few more of the books. She works in a diagonal method and has some of the books. So hers is just the regular size, regular colors. So it'll be really interesting to see what the differences actually are, to see if it is worth doing all the extra that goes into a supersize max color or not. But yeah, hers looks really great, and it's fun to see other people stitching at the same projects. I know that Library of Cats is being created by Aimee Stewart and is currently being charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. And I know the Max Color Stitcher, Anne over there, is so eager to start that one. She has purchased her fabric and is ready to go when HAED chart that and she can purchase it. So it'll be really fun to stitch the dog and the cat one alongside her, and watch her progress on that as well. Cats aren't my thing, but it's still fun to watch and see the similarities and also the differences in how the projects are designed. The next one I did spin, getting back to my projects, was Celestial Fantasy by Escape Journals, charted by the Cross Stitch Studio. This was last year's mystery sale. So I put 300 stitches in on this one as well. So it is now at 72,700 stitches out of 90,000, and I'm at 80.78%. So that is very exciting to be making some progress on that. So I was just picking the symbols up here. So some of these blues, some of the light colors, and you cannot see them, but there are actually stitches all in this middle section. But I don't think that they're going to show up at all. Or maybe you can see some dots. They are actually stitches. There are a lot of light colors in this project, and until the other stitches come in, you have no idea they're there. But this is where she's up to so far. So she is so close to being done. I do love the charting. There is no dark line in the middle. It's just from how it's folded. It'll come out when I wash and iron it at the end. It's just shadow from that, so do not stress. She actually doesn't have that dark line. I just can't pull it straight enough and keep it out for you to see. But I've got down towards the bottom, so the bottom of the project is here. So just 6 rows to go, I think it is. Yeah, 6 rows to go and she is finished. And the last one I spun was Harvest Moon by Cross Stitch for Everyone, also stitched on a 28 count even weave. And I also put 300 stitches in on this one. So So this one is at 2,000 stitches out of 131,769 for 1.52%. And I just came across in this section, filling in some of the dark sky, and some of it came into this blob of brown here, which I think will be a leaf eventually, but it's hard to know. But that's all I've done, so I won't unfold the fabric. But that is where we're up to. So they were my stitches this week. So like I said, very happy with what I got, even if it wasn't a normal stitching week. Okay, I'm back to go through plans. I did try to film this just at the tail end of my video, but all I could get was glare on my tablet. Even though, as you can see, the light is fading fast, I could not angle the tablet in such a way that it did not get any glare. So I might have to have a play around over the next week and see where else I could film that has good enough light to see the projects, but not so it's glary on the tablet. So we'll see what I come up with next week. There might be a different background if I'm in a different room. But I have no idea. So I have done the wheel spin on my phone and screen recorded the wheel spins. So I'll try and put them in so you can see what the wheel spins were and then what project I'm going to work on. And hopefully I get my timing right. So I apologize if this is just a mess. I will try to get it right next week. Maybe one day I'll get this segment right. Who knows? So I'll pop the wheel spin in here. So the first one that it spun up for the week was Dog Library. So we just saw that one this week. It'll be really good to see that one out again, get a bit more work on it. It's really fun to work on, even if it is just confetti everywhere. So then I spun the wheel again, and to get the second project for the week, and that one spun Pile of Dragons, which is also a really fun one to stitch, but it's a little bit harder to stitch on because it has no background charted. I definitely am a full coverage stitcher. I very much like my square or rectangle shape. I find the edges of non-full coverages a lot harder. I don't know how people do all the non-full coverages and think that full coverages are so scary, because to me it is the opposite. So the spin for the third project of the week was Daydreaming by Cross Stitch for Everyone. So that'll be fun. I think we're coming into, from memory, coming into the second row along the top, because the little partial row at the top was gone because I have taken out the white. The fourth project that was spun for the week is another repeat for last week's projects, and it is Celestial Fantasy again, so probably moving into some of the lighter colors. So I'm not sure if they're all those light colors, unless they're in one area and sort of bunch up with a slightly darker yellow. I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see next week, but we'll see what colors are next in the 10 by 10 square to choose. The fifth project that I spun to work on this week is one that I do love. It's hard to work on, but I do love. It is Tangled Max. I think he's really cute. I do love the movie The Grinch, so it's really fun to work on Max. But he's also non-fill coverage, so, and I'm right up the top in the antler, and there is a lot of color changes in that antler. You think it's just an antler, there won't be that much. There is. But I'm excited to see him progress, and he's not that big. He's only about 33,000 stitches, so hopefully we'll get to see a finish on him maybe sometime next year. And the final one that I spun up for the week was another Cross Stitch Studio project, and that was Aquarius. So hopefully I can get out of the middle of that yellow flower. I'm hoping that the 300 can get me out of there because it is confetti. I've been in there for several stitchy sessions now, and in the big scheme of things on the cover picture, which will be on your screen now, that yellow flower doesn't look that big. On my fabric, it looks much, much bigger. I'm confused. I just can't seem to get out of that yellow flower, but we will see what happens this week and see where that 300 stitches gets me. I really do hope I get into or at least out of the middle of the flower and do the edge of the flower, so then in a couple of stitchy sessions maybe I can move into something else. That is why I like doing the top row, because if I was doing page by page, that flower would probably take up half the page, that center, and I don't think I'd ever want to stitch on it because it is so time consuming. There are so many ninja stitches. So this week it looks like a lot of confetti and slightly more difficult stitching, so we'll see how much extra stitching I can get in. I would like to put some extra into gnomes, seeing as we're less than 7,000 left. You know, we're looking at 7 weeks. Let's see if we can make it a bit shorter, but those stitchy projects might take me a bit longer than I'd like, so we'll see what this week brings. I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. I really hope you enjoy what you saw. I am loving the comments and interacting with you all. So if you have any questions or feedback or comments about what I'm working on, or if you just want to share what you're working on, I know I have enabled a few people to get projects that are mine. So if you want to share where you're up to, how you're stitching them, please feel free to do so. I really do enjoy reading that. And if you have a floss tube and you're working on similar projects, let me know, and I can always have a look and see where you're working, because it's fun to see your projects in different places. I was talking to Cal from Cal Stitches, who's also working on Waterhole Master, and she, in her latest floss tube, was talking about it and how it's really good to see, because she has worked in more the middle of where the zebras are. She has some of the elephant done and more in the middle, and I'm done the elephant and are now working across the top, so you get to see a different thing, and if you sort of put the two together you get quite a large chunk of the project. So it's really fun to see, especially when people stitch in a different way to you. It's really fun to see the similarities and how your project compares, not from a comparison, oh theirs is better than mine, or they've done more than me, or anything like that, just what it's going to look like when it's finished. I think it's really fun. I, like everyone, would love to do more stitches than I do, but life is life, and this is as many as I can get done, so I just enjoy what I'm doing. I could make much more progress on projects if I had less projects, but I also wouldn't be as interested in stitching if I had less projects. So I like the variety. I like the fact that when a project's a little bit difficult in a position, not difficult as in it's hard to do, it's all just X's, isn't it, really? But when it's very confetti heavy, when it's very slow going, it's really good to just say, oh, I've hit 300, swap it out and do something else. Now sometimes you just do confetti after confetti after confetti project, but eventually you get something that's a little bit different, so it just breaks it up a little bit and adds some interest, different colors, different things you're looking at. It's just makes it more fun. So I always say, do what you want to do, don't copy anyone else, just do you. If it makes you happy, then that's all that matters. So I will leave it here. I hope everyone has a great week, and I will see you all next week. Bye.